And so for me, it was this devastating question of, what did I do to get me here? I'm not going the martyr route. I'm not going, this is all my fault. But man, it seemed to be like I'm the central theme in this story. So if I want to shape my life to be different, if I don't want to fucking end up here again, I better start asking some different questions and better start exploring some different avenues.
In this week's episode, we talk with men's coach and the creator of Man, Uncivilised, Traver Boehm, where we talk about hitting rock bottom, dark night of the soul, hero's journey, breakup and divorce, the unexamined life, the importance of heart, head and balls, and much, much more. Enjoy the episode. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Momentum Lifestyle Podcast by myself, Blake Worrell-Thompson.
And me, Genoa Van Keekum. Momentum is a men's well-being and performance community dedicated to helping men be better.
Each week, we deep dive with your favorite thought leaders and experts from around the world to get their insights to help you be better. Enjoy the episode. Now, guys, before we get started on this week's podcast, I want to talk to you about our Momentum Mastermind. The Mastermind is our 12-month program for men who want to surround themselves with other committed men, all with similar interests, values, and goals. Whether you're looking to build or grow a profitable lifestyle business, develop financial freedom, get in the best shape of your life, or create an intimate and epic relationship, the Mastermind is perfect for those who are looking to have it all. We know that to create these results and this kind of lifestyle on your own can be super challenging. So join now for your free 30-day trial. Simply visit our website, www.themomentumlifestyle.com.au. Up the top, you'll see a section for programs. Click on the programs, you'll see our mastermind, and you can sign up there now for your free 30-day trial valued at $1,000. We look forward to seeing you part of the mastermind. Traver, Boehm, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, sir. It's a pleasure to be here.
Did I get it right?
Yeah.
For those listening, we had a little check-in prior to coming online just to make sure I got his name right, because I hadn't heard his first name ever in my life and I wasn't sure how to pronounce the surname. So it's always good to get the intro right. Mate, plenty for us to talk about, lots around the Uncivilised Man, which I love the work that you've done around that. But before we get started on that, can you give the guys a 60 to 90 second spiel of your life and what's got you to where you are now?
Quick and dirty. This is where I'll start. Like, I always get asked, like, what do you do? And I say, I'm a writer and I've written 2 books in my life, and 2 in 2 years. This is a number of years ago. And one quietly went on Amazon and did nothing until about 8 months ago. The second, Man Uncivilized, blew my life up. And it turned me from a guy who wrote a book to now a guy who runs a international corporation with men's groups all over the world and workshops and a membership and courses. And so I teach men. That's what I do. When I'm not doing that, I love to be a writer, but that seems to be less and less often. But I'm really interested, like, in men, in what makes us tick, in what hurts us, in how we end the suffering that so many men exist with and think is normal, and how we end the suffering that so many men, because of that, then put out into the world. So I'm just an insanely curious person that went through a hard time and came out of it with some questions that led to, who am I? Who am I as a man? First one was like a spiritual, I'll probably chew on for my entire life, like meditation question. The second was, holy shit, how come no one's ever asked me this before? And it made me open up a view of the world of men and going, you know what? No one's asked any of us this. Oh, fuck, here's some potential here. So long story short, I'm a guy in Colorado who wrote a book and now is head first into the men's world and the world of all things male.
I love it. And as I said before as well, loving men's work and having my own struggles, I really got a lot from your book, which we'll go into in a sec.
Thank you.
But you mentioned a couple of times there suffering. What was the catalyst for you jumping into this work, and what was your own, or what did your own suffering look like?
I had the classic fall, right? Like, I was, quote, the guy who had it all. I had a great business. I was married to the love of my life. She was pregnant. I was making money. I lived in this awesome part of California. I was surfing every day. I ran a gym, and then boom, like just like a storybook ending. right? We lost the pregnancy. She told me that was the universe's way of saying we should get divorced. I woke up one day and she was literally gone. And my life at that point then exploded. The very next morning, my business partner said he didn't want to be in business with me anymore. And I had fortunately had some, not spiritual training, but I'd read enough books from Carolyn Mace, from Pema Chodron, from big teachers that said, hey, when everything falls apart, take a breath and recognize that perhaps your life wasn't on the track it was supposed to be on. And now all of that stuff has gotten cleared out. Now things are going to suck for a year or two, and you're going to falter and fail. And like, welcome to rock bottom. Welcome to having your face rubbed in the concrete on rock bottom. And take a look around down here, because there's information that you can't access elsewhere. And so for me, it was this devastating question of, what did I do to get me here? I'm not going the martyr route. I'm not going, this is all my fault. But man, it seemed to be like I'm the central theme in this story. So if I want to shape my life to be different, if I don't want to fucking end up here again, I better start asking some different questions and better start exploring some different avenues. So immediately, it was probably 3 days after my ex-wife left, I quit drinking, just cold turkey. And I wasn't a big drinker, but it was enough that like I looked at all the ways I was taught by culture or celebrated or allowed as a man: pot, porn, alcohol, exercise, overwork, like you name the like, quote, it's okay, everybody does it vices. And I had them. And so I cleared them all out of the way and just sat in my own shit for about a year and let feelings come out, let ideas come out, talked to therapists, went to workshops, talked to teachers, talked to people who were wiser than I am, and really started to piece back together all the things that I think I'd missed in the first 40 years of my life, Blake. Like no one had said to me up until 40, do you realize what happened to you in your past is still informing your future? And if they had, I would have said, yeah, that's some hunky, like, or hokey spiritual bullshit. Like I'm a grown ass man now, and I don't have capital T trauma. Like I wasn't raped, I wasn't abused, I didn't watch anybody die, I didn't go to war, but we all have trauma. We all have some things that have happened to us that in hindsight, I was like, oh, I never dealt with that. And then, but you know what I did do? I drank it. I fucked it away. I got really good at exercising, became a professional athlete. I got really good at making sure everybody else around me was okay, so that the focus was never on me. Am I okay? And so I feel like this is a long-winded answer to a short question, but it really was the awakening where I went, okay, if I stop numbing myself, if I stop checking out long enough to go, wait a minute, that doesn't feel good. Or wait a minute, I want this. Wait a minute, I don't want this. And started to be more discerning, more contemplative, more engaged in my own life. And then also started really diving into classic works on spirituality, on health, on men's work. And then the idea of like, I went to a men's workshop and I had zero understanding of what it was, zero idea of what I was going to get out of it. Just curiosity took me there. And I walked out having no idea that this is the work I would end up doing. Zero. If you had talked to me that Monday, it would be like, incredible experience, truly eye-opening. And I want to teach kettlebell swings and jujitsu and be an acupuncturist, right? All the things I was at the time. But I would also have said to you, I feel like I've lived 40 years of my life without a right arm. I've gotten really good as a dude doing things with my left arm. I'm highly proficient. I built a $500,000 business, right? I married a girl. I did all, look at this, look at my life. And then that Monday went, oh, look, I got this thing here. Look at it. It opens jars. It opens doors. Oh, oops. I can punch people with it. Better not do that. But it became this whole exploration of half of my being got given back to me. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
100%. And I can resonate so deeply with your story, probably just 6 years prior. I think yours happened at 40, mine happened at 34. What I actually had an interview with a guy who had a very similar story to both of ours in terms of the absolute rock bottom yesterday. And it was really interesting to kind of compare stories. Obviously, we have our own individual stories, but what happens at rock bottom and where you go to from there. One of the things that I really wish I had was an understanding of what I was going through in terms of the dark night of the soul or the awakening. Whereas for me, no one around me could give insight, and I just thought this was fucked. And it was 18 months. Did you have people around you? Did you understand what was going on? Did anyone give you insights? What did it look like for you at rock bottom?
It's a great question. In my 20s, for some reason, fell in love with the work of Carolyn Mace, if you've ever read any of her stuff. So I had an intellectual understanding of the dark night of the soul. I want to say this again. Like, I had an intellectual understanding of the archetype of the wounded healer. I had an intellectual understanding of those two. And it wasn't until I started working with a brilliant Jungian therapist who asked me, have you ever heard of the hero's journey? And I went, nope, no idea what that is. And he goes, cool, you're in it. And you're about here in the process. And I remember leaving his office that day, still feeling like shit, but feeling like there was a container around the shit, or like I knew where I was on the shit trail, and went, oh, this happens to most people at some point, or people numerous times. So at least to have a framing, like you said, around what I was going through was immensely valuable. And it gave some aspect of relief that this would end. And again, I want to bring it back to the idea. He was also the one who said, in the depths of your depression, when you're down this, you would use the idea of like geology. When you get this deep in the muck and the shit, there's gems that don't live at the surface. So please don't decide to like buy real estate down here and stay here forever, but use this as an opportunity. Like, this is a really golden opportunity in your life. And I remember thinking, like, go fuck yourself. And
I totally get it.
Right?
Totally get it.
Like, don't try to shine me that this is some good thing. And wow, he was so right. The gems down there, the truths that were buried so deep are what I rebuilt my life upon. And I think the challenge for a lot of men, specifically Blake, and we know this from looking at statistics around suicide, which most of them come in some relationship to a breakup or a divorce or some massive life change, that men don't know this. And we think, this thing happened to me. This is forever. Nothing good will come of this. This will never end. Now you take those four and you throw in some alcohol, a lot of alcohol, some drugs, and a gun, and you got yourself a really good recipe for why those statistics exist, as opposed to if that guy on rock bottom could have 4 or 5 men around him who say, by the way, I've been here, it sucks. And archetypally, in the pattern that you're going through, you cannot see that there's another side. Because if you could, you would just white knuckle your way through it until you got to the other side. So here's my advice for you, brother. Get a journal, get 4 of them, get a therapist, get a meditation mat, get some good people around you that you can call when you're like face down and you don't know what to do, and start breathing again and start listening. Holy shit, I didn't know. Holy shit, I didn't know. Look at what's coming at you. Look at the people. What are the conversations that you're overhearing? What's the 3rd time in a day that you've heard someone say something? Like, start paying attention and realize, like, don't bypass this. This isn't, yay, this is the best thing that ever happened to me. Don't do that. Stay in it and stay authentic in it. So for me, it looked like hell. And I say it like I went through hell. You did too. Clearly, like I don't ever want to go back there. And yet it's this 50-50 dichotomy of yet I'm so grateful for it. And I'm so grateful that I paid attention in it, that I did do it sober, that I didn't fuck women, drink a bunch of alcohol, be like, cool, you know what I'll do? I'll just train for Everest. Nope. Stayed indoors a lot, wrote a ton, journaled a ton, and really used the time, I believe, wisely.
I'm glad I And you said it so perfectly. If anyone else, when I was going through that, was to say, hey, bro, this is happening for you, not to you, I would have told them to go fuck themselves. But the fact that I told myself that most days of like, how's this happening for me, not to me, was a real like constant reflection point for me of like, there's got to be an out. And so similar to you, I've always heard the metaphor, the future looks bleak. And I was like, oh, that's a metaphor. And then when I was in it and I looked to my future and I literally could just see this like dirty, pixelated unknown, I was like, oh, this isn't a metaphor. This is fucking real life. And this is where I'm at. What for you? So meditation, journaling, speaking to people, what else for you happened in that moment that helped you stay on course? If ironically, you've coming back onto course, but what were the, like the daily practices, the mottos, the thoughts, the environment that helped you get through day to day when you were going through this awakening, dark night of the soul, death?
For sure. I adopted a mantra and I created it, and actually I'm debating whether to turn it into a book itself. And the mantra was one day stronger. And this was the idea that like, if the day was shitty, that means I was even stronger the next day. So it wasn't a bypass. Like I think with the just to backtrack a sec, it is happening to you and it's happening for you. And that holding those two pieces is really helpful. And so I wanted to use it. I think that was the key. I adopted this mentality. Like, I'm an athlete. Okay. On my worst training days, when the weight is fucking heavy, I can't breathe, I feel like I'm going to puke, or I have puked. Like, those are the days afterwards where I go, that was worth it. I'm stronger now. I earned that whatever ounce of strength I'm carrying with me. So having this idea of one day stronger, one day stronger, one day stronger, I would literally say that to myself as I put my head on the pillow at night. Like, hey man, you made it, one day stronger. And like, that became a piece. And then I was in a unique position where suddenly I'm not a father. I'm not going to be a father. I'm not a husband. I'm no longer a business owner. I have so much goddamn space. It's terrifying. Like, it's deafening how much space is in front of me. So I created a project that was a year long that would actually be both doing and being, and so out of my comfort zone for an entire year that it gave me something else to lean into. And okay, here's the journey. I'm going to write it myself. I called it the Year to Live Project. And basically for 12 months, lived the entire year of 2016 as if it were my last year alive. And I did all the things that one would do. I sketched it out. I mapped it out. Granted, I had the beautiful benefit of I just sold a business. So I'm going to get a paycheck for the next 2 years, but I also did side work and stuck needles in people, taught some workshops. But I did a full year of really, really engaging things that were so different than what I'd done before. Right. So I used to teach people how to, I was a CrossFit coach, ran a gym, was an acupuncturist. Suddenly I'm volunteering in hospice, hanging out with people who are dying. I'm living in the woods for a month-long survival course. Did the month in the dark, right? Of a month-long meditation with no light. Went to an ashram, like traveled a bit, lived in my car, gave myself permission that if anybody I overheard had an interesting conversation, I'd like ask if they would mind if I could butt in. And I wrote the entire time. I made this whole thing public. So you don't have to do what I did, but I think it really helped, especially for guys. Like, we're mission driven, we're purpose driven, to say like, okay, this fucked up thing is happening. What am I going to do with it? Not how am I going to remove myself so I don't feel it, but what am I going to do with it? Like, I cried most nights of that year. I had breakdown after breakdown because I was still in the grief process. But man, did that year reorient everything that I've done since and inform everything that I've done since. So it was both big picture and then, micro. Woke up every morning, cup of coffee, 45 minutes of meditation. I had a meditation practice prior to lean on, but man, at the end of those 45 minutes, I remember for like a half hour, I'd feel like I was going to be okay. And I knew, I was like, hey, if I feel like I'm going to be okay for a half hour, that means this isn't like a universal forever thing, right? Like that means that feeling can be created again. I did that. I worked out every day, like would make appointments with people to say, like, Monday, can I go to lunch with you? Tuesday, can I call you? Wednesday, can I go to a thing with you? Thursday, like filled my time with humans. And then lastly, because I had quit drinking, so what I did every night at dinner, and I'm also alone a lot because I'm now getting divorced, I would watch YouTube videos of my favorite teachers, Tony Robbins, Carolyn Mace, Wayne Dyer, like you name it. And there was something nourishing about what they were saying. Like it took my pain away, Blake. I'll be honest. Like listening to Carolyn speak, I'd be like, I'm not in pain right now. Granted, I'd turn the computer off and fucking go like sob in my bathroom. But for that, but for that hour, well, I ate like reheated pasta, I wasn't in pain. So I think you got to take care of the micro. You got to get through the day before you can plan 5 years out. But a really beautiful question that I ask people, because one of the books I wrote, the first one, is all about divorce. And there's a piece in there that's like, hey, email me and send me this list of 5 things that's amazing about you. Just as like an idea, I threw it in the book, and people do it. I get one like 3 or 4 times a week, and I'll write them back. It's like, hey, what are you going to do with all this? And the answer is like, I always wanted to go to grad school. I always wanted to start my own business. I always wanted to move such and such. Or I don't think I've been a really good father, and I want to really be a better father. I want to quit drinking. I'm like, fucking do it. Use this, use this, use this. We don't talk in the West about grief being a catalyst. We don't talk about loss being a catalyst. We have commercials, at least here in the US, that say, if any little thing is wrong in your life, here's a pill so that you don't have to feel that thing. If anything is wrong in your life, here's a pill, as opposed to, hey, if anything's wrong in your life, take a look at your life. And then you get to actually make some empowered decisions. So that's how I did it.
Mate, I resonate so much with everything that you've said. What was the feeling for you? Because again, different situations, but similar scenarios in terms of losing it all is how I would describe mine, to the point where the last 2 things I thought I had, mental and physical health, I lost those too as well before I bottomed out. What for you is and was the feeling at the bottom? Because for me, it was part liberation, because I was like, I've got nothing else to lose, and part exciting because I can only go up. What for you was the way in which you looked at the world at your rock bottom?
I bounce back, and it's a great question, Blake. I bounce back and forth between just the like crushing grief, the like, I don't want to rebuild this. I've spent 40 years of my life building this. I don't know if I have the energy and time and freedom or not freedom, the energy, time, and wherewithal to rebuild it, right? Like I'd spent 6 years building that business, week in, week out, hands-on, 7 days a week sometimes, right? Like I'd waited years to court the girl and gone back and forth with her. I was like, I don't have the energy for this. And it was that, coupled with, holy shit, this is absolute pure freedom. I still had my health and was grateful for it every day. But I remember thinking, I can move anywhere in the world. I can do what I do now. I could teach kettlebell swings and stick needles in people. I can do that anywhere in the world. But then also, wow, there's this thing that's happening to me. I'm writing and sharing it publicly, and people are coming at me in droves. Maybe this is something in my new life. Maybe this is what I was supposed to be doing. And supposed to is a loaded term, but the life I have now, I used to lie in bed and fantasize about when I was married, when I did have the business, when I did have all that. And I couldn't cross that bridge. I didn't know how to. And I remember thinking, well, I can't do this stuff that I'm doing now because that will require leaving this life that I've built. And so I think my soul, for lack, like if you're okay with us getting a little fluffy, my soul was like, okay, cool. Well, this is the life that actually, this is the track you're meant to be on. So we got this. You ready? Cool. We're just going to flush your life. And I've talked to so many guys that have this happen to them. So many. So it's almost comical now. when people will reach out and say like, hey, just lost this, and this. And I'm like, two things to say to you. I'm so sorry. My heart aches for you. Congratulations. You're about to enter your new life.
I resonate so much. Mate, your book was one of my favorite reads for
you.
so many reasons. You really articulated the work that's necessary for men so well. And it's just a really easy read as well, the way you kind of laid it out. What is an uncivilized man, and why more than ever do we need them?
This is a man who has equal access to both the primal side of himself, the natural side of himself, the parts of masculinity that flow through his veins that aren't, quote, a construct, right? And then also has deep access and a relationship with his own consciousness, the divine side of himself. And I know sometimes people hear divine and they think white male Christian God, and that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about consciousness. I'm talking about emotion. I'm talking about feelings. I'm talking about relationship. I'm talking about the life you want to live, your heart, your soul, all the things on the other side, right? I remember hearing or reading Jack Donovan's book, The Way of Men, and I love him. I've talked to Jack a number of times, actually interviewed him. And in the book, I remember him saying, this is what masculinity is. Imagine being in a village, and then that village suddenly is under attack. What the men do is like natural masculinity. You go to the front, you set up a perimeter, you defend the tribe, you kill if you need to, you defend, you fuck shit up, you protect, then you're going out and getting food, you provide for the thing. And I remember reading that and being like, yeah, but what happens after the village? Like, what happens after they leave? And thinking there's an incompleteness here. And I'm not attacking Jack's work. I love Jack's work. It was helpful for me. But I wanted to know, when the war was over, was it not masculinity for me to say, hey, Blake, man, you look a little fucked up right now. I know you killed those 4 guys in protecting the village. Super grateful you did that. What can I do to help you? How do I hold you? How do I heal you? How do I celebrate you? How do I keep you okay? Right? So it wasn't just the external physical. It was also the internal. And then again, maybe 2 days later, how do I go back to my woman? Or, we'll speak heteronormatively here. Just how do I go back to my woman and make, hey, I love you. I did that whole thing out of an act of love. I care for you. I care for my children. I'm emoting right now. I'm overcome with love. I'm overcome with sadness. I'm overcome with grief. Like, to me, the whole spectrum was masculinity. That was the uncivilized man. Equal access to his head, his heart, and his balls. Unapologetic access to all 3. Unapologetic access to the entire spectrum of masculinity, Blake, from the dude who's like, you know what I want to do? I want to drive a fucking 67 Mustang. I want to deadlift all day. And that's about it. And eat steak. And you're like, cool. All the way to the poet, the guy who's got his nails painted and long hair, and he's the artist, he's the creative. I don't give a fuck. Like, there's a spectrum in between there that if a man can say, hey, I've done the contemplation. I know why I'm on the spectrum because of my wounds. I know why I'm on the spectrum because of my environment, but I want to be here on the spectrum because that's what my soul wants. That's what my heart wants. To me, that's the definition of an uncivilized man. It takes some effort, right? We've done this sorting through. Life has forced us to do this, contemplation, this examination. So I know who I am now because I lost everything I didn't examine and then had to examine. So that's what he is, right? Proud, strong, fierce, open, loving, caring, in integrity, beautiful, all of these things. That's what he is. Now, why do we need him now more than ever? Brother, look at the world. We are in the midst of more chaos than we ever imagined. And I think in your country, it's even, COVID was worse for you guys than it was for us. Like, we're in a political theater of fucking buffoonery up here, but you guys were in like a military lockdown. So the world needs strong men But the world needs like feeling men now more than anything, because strength without feeling, you read the ethos tenet, right? That's just tyranny. Love without strength, we just have victims. And it feels like there's this divide in the culture where we have hardcore left or hardcore right. And no one's going, wait a minute, there's a whole group of guys, and what's necessary is actually the middle. I need to be discerning. I need to read something and go, that doesn't feel right. And I'm not going to dispense or ignore my feelings because I'm a dude and I don't do that. Right? I need to feel, but I also need to be able to stand up in front of a group of people and go, hey, this is a bunch of bullshit. None of us agree with this. We're actually being lied to. And by the way, our strength is in our unity. There's never been a more divided time in Western culture. I don't know what it's like down where you are, but here in the States, like, we hate each other for every possible. Oh, you wore a mask, I fucking hate you. Oh, you voted for this guy, I fucking hate you. Oh, you look a little different than me, then I hate you. You believe this thing, I hate you. We've just become so divided. And we've become so divided because it's so easy to divide us if we're not doing our work. If I'm traumatized to hell, I'm super easily manipulated. But when I start to untangle that shit and actually look at myself in the mirror, not through the lens of fuck everybody, I'm super pissed at what happened to me, or, oh my God, who am I to actually speak about this? But take both lenses and throw them out and say, hey, no. This don't jive with me anymore. And by the way, I can clearly communicate to my brothers. I have men around me, strong, capable men, and we are all holding a different standard. And now we're going to ask you, society, you politicians, you lawmakers, to have the same standard we are, which is your words and actions have to match. Enough of the gaslighting, enough of the lying, enough of the fucking corruption. That shit doesn't work anymore. But that has to start here, at home, in the mirror, right? If you're lying to your wife, it's really easy for you to lie about society. If you're lying to yourself, it's really easy for you to lie to your wife. That's why I think this work is absolutely vital right now. And actually why I think it is cropping up, and why more and more men's movements and men's groups exist all over the world, because guys specifically, like, we're the holders of the container, and the container's just gotten decimated. Now it's just chaos left and right. We are the ones who bring structure and order to chaos. It is what our systems do. It's what our nervous systems do. It's what our bodies do. It's what we do when we are actually in integrity. We shut that shit down. Like, no. We will have order here. We will have justice. That's why I think I feel like I just went on a rant, but that's why I feel like now more than ever, man, right? And let me just add one more piece. Let me keep ranting. Because so many men are suffering. So many people are suffering, Blake. Like, we don't have an inkling of the damage that the last 3 years did, of how many people lost loved ones, lost their ideas, gave up on the entire system, or like dove headfirst into addiction, into pharmaceuticals, into anything they could to not feel the fear of death or the pain of feeling helpless and out of control. That, to me, I just got chills. That is an unmeasured hurt. And who are the people that express themselves the least and seek help the least and are quick to anger, violence, and self-anger and self-violence? Men are. That's why I think it's paramount right now. I'm going to take a breath.
Mate, I fucking loved it. One of the things that you speak of, and if you're a man and you haven't probably stepped into this work yet, one of the things that might be holding you back is really kind of the domestication and becoming quite a docile masculine. What have you seen as some of the challenges? Because I really love your primal energy when I see it. What are some of the challenges that you've experienced when men go from this suppressed, docile, domesticated doormat to a uncivilized, primal masculine, knowing that for many of them, they're like, oh, this primal thing, where does this fit in my life? Like, what does that evolution look like?
That's a great question. So remember I was talking about my right arm. You know, I think the challenge for a lot of men, and this was for me too. So I'll be like, I was the guinea pig. When I got my right arm, I just walked around like smashing shit with it. Like, this thing's awesome. I'm just going to buy guns and buy cars and fuck women. And like, oh, this is the best. Where's this been my whole life? And there wasn't integration. So I think first, let me say this. Anytime there's a transition or anytime there's a shift in the dynamic of a relationship, that relationship may not last. Whether that's a marriage, a friendship, a business relationship, a societal relationship, when you decide to step off of the prescribed path and you live in an ecosystem, which we all do, the ecosystem will reorient itself around you, or it may kick you out. Right? So first, men have to realize that taking this path is courageous because it will change the people around you.
Mm.
Many of them will not be here anymore. Anyone who's quit drinking, I quit drinking 8 years ago. And what do you know? 50, 60% of my quote best friends didn't want to hang out with me anymore. And I wasn't there standing on the side of the street with like, everybody needs to quit drinking sign. I just quit drinking. But man, was the juice worth the squeeze? Absolutely.
Mm.
So what do I see with guys, right? First, there may be some grief of like, oh shit, this has been here the whole time. This feels so good. I didn't know this happened. Then there's this fear of the unknown. And Blake, that's a big thing for us guys. We love to control shit. And the unknown often kills us, right? At least biologically, we're wired to think like, well, if everything's the same and nothing's killed us so far, everything the same is being good. Now, if everything's not the same, man, that invites a lot of potential for greatness and for challenge. So I see men grieve, for lack of a better term, of like, how come this wasn't shown to me years ago? And then I see men often overcompensate. Right? You see this in a lot of men's movements of like, rah, we're just all like, I wish we weren't Navy SEALs in our 20s. So we're going to pretend we're Navy SEALs all weekend. Everything. I am the man. I am the dominant in the household. My wife has to like, just follow me around and go, yes, sir. Yes, sir. And like, okay, cool. Don't forget there's like going to be a little bit of a swing back of the pendulum. But then as it gets integrated, what's really interesting is a lot of things that were important to that man suddenly aren't important. A lot of the hobbies he has drops away. The location he lives may change. The clothes he likes to wear suddenly don't feel like the right thing for him. It's a weird shift, Blake, when we talk about, again, going a little bit abstract, when you're fully expressing your soul, when you're fully expressing your heart, the things that your mind and ego were attached to suddenly feel trivial. Right? I was a diehard New York Giants football fan for like a decade, then went on this journey, and now I watch like a game a year. And I'm not better than the people who watch football. I'm not more evolved and conscious. It's just not that interesting to me anymore. Right? Sitting in a bar, shooting the shit about sports just isn't that interesting to me anymore. It's okay. If it is for you, okay. Like, am I still a dude? Fuck yeah. Right? I got 2 guns in the corner here. I got a G-Wagon in the driveway. I just spent 3 weeks surfing in Costa Rica. My girlfriend got me a boob mug for my birthday. like I'm still a dude.
Yeah.
But a lot of the things that were really exciting and interesting to me aren't that interesting anymore.
Mm.
But it's not like that void wasn't filled. Right? So what do I see? I see a lot of guys taking up fitness. I see a lot of guys taking up martial arts. I see a lot of guys taking up hunting or food prep. I see a lot of guys using their bodies in ways that they weren't. I see a lot of guys having their sexual desire come back online. I have a lot of guys whose relationships then need to be reoriented. Right? And going to your partner and saying like, hey, I think I've had this energy awaken in me. I don't know what to do with it, but to stay in relationship is to ask, how do we do this together? And so I think that's a really important point to make. And we can say the same for the divine side. What happens, right? The pendulum swings over and suddenly Johnny Accountant is like at Burning Man and is like, has a spiritual name and has mala beads and is walking around his house in robes and is like the classic, like spiritual bro. Like, I don't know if I feel called to work today. I think I'm just going to do some ayahuasca. You're like, okay, awesome. Well, you're going to have to pay rent in a month. So swing the pendulum back to the middle, right? Like,
Yeah.
you don't just get to not show up for things because you don't feel called, right?
Mhm.
It's sort of the same. And then hopefully there's this blend and integration of the two. I wake up, I meditate, pray to whoever it is that's running this whole show, and then I go to the gym, right? In the afternoons, I go do jujitsu. Spent 3 weeks surfing in Costa Rica. But I'm also working, I'm writing, I'm speaking, I'm having very deep conversations with people, checking in with myself, checking in with my family, like really making sure that all aspects of I'm writing, seeing like, what aspects of my life that if I feel tension, like what's not being expressed? And how do I express it skillfully? Because I do live in an ecosystem. I do have a girlfriend. I don't just get to say, well, this desire to go fuck 50 women came up in me today. And I was on a podcast where I said, I have to be authentic. So I'll be back in 7 hours. Like that shit doesn't work either, right? So there's I'll say it again. There's an integration that needs to happen.
Mm.
And that's when it's embodied. When you're like, hey, I can take a breath and tap into my primal side. I can take a breath and feel some energetics. I don't call it God, call it the universe, call it whatever you want. That's I have access to both of them now. In the beginning, it was like jujitsu, surfing, 4 hours of meditation. Cool. I figured them both out. Well, you got to live in this earth too. So that's again, long answer, short question, but that's what I see.
You mentioned your partner a couple of times there, and God bless them for getting you that mug. What do you see as the difference between your previous relationship, if I've got my timeline right, 7 years ago, give or take,
8 years ago, yeah.
and the relationship that you're in now, with obviously a complete transition of your life, but also, as you spoke of, bringing your heart online and also your kind of primal energy. How have you shown up different in pre and post in terms of the two different relationships?
Great question. So I was a classic nice guy, if you know that moniker,
Robert
right?
Glover.
Like, I'm not saying like I was a nice person. I was the quote, capital N, capital G, nice guy. So I showed up in my marriage terrified that at any moment she would leave, which, what do you know? She did. And she did
Yeah.
because of all the reasons I protected myself, compartmentalized, and compensated for this fear that she was going to leave. Now, my fear of her leaving meant that I wouldn't ever take a stand. I remember her asking me, like, what do you like? I was like, whatever you like. Like, you remember I don't know if you've seen, you ever seen Coming to America with Eddie Murphy?
Yeah.
And he's got like his wife, and she's like, what music do you like? And she's like, whatever music you like.
Yeah.
But what food do you like? Whatever food you like. Like, that was me in my fucking marriage, man. It's like, it's horrible to admit, or it's embarrassing to admit. But now working with so many nice guys, like, I know where they're at. So one, I didn't know who I was. And I mean that, like, I didn't know who I was. I loved aspects of what I did, but I didn't know what I was here to do. I didn't know I was supposed to be a writer. I didn't know that when I write, it blows people's fucking worlds open. I didn't understand the power of the word. I didn't understand the power of the position I had been put in, not by choice, but by whatever. And so I hid a lot. Right. I didn't tell my ex-wife what I liked, what I didn't like, what I wanted to do. I didn't have an understanding of leadership in relationship. And so swing over to the new one. I remember maybe our second, third date saying, this is what my life's going to look like. Yes, there may be deviations, but this is what this next chapter is going to look like. This is where I think it's going to lead to. This is who I am. This is who I am sexually. This is who I am relationally. This is who I am in the world. These things will not change very much. I would love for you to come be a part of that if you feel like this is also in alignment with what you want. Swing back to my marriage. I don't know who I am. I don't know what I want. I just want to be with you. So whatever I have to do to squiggle, wiggle, lie, hide to fit into your narrative, I'll do that. Oh, by the way, that will also require me to drink most nights of the week, smoke a ton of dope, jerk off to porn every time you're not home, lie about everything, be completely terrified of you as a human, and let's get married. So radical difference. But Blake, I also want to add, I'm still human. I still fuck up. I still grew up in the same house I grew up in. I still have the same, like, things have changed. Things have happened to me in the relationship. I now am in a really unique position as a human, in charge of thousands of people's lives, or, you know, in regard to thousands of people's lives. I now have to deal with being a public figure. These are things that I didn't have to in my marriage, that also ping off of my insecurities, my challenges, my blind spots, my hopes and fears and whatnots. So I don't want this to sound like, and now every day of my relationship is perfect. No, it's just, it's so much more aware. Like, you can't see it, but next to me is a big whiteboard, dry erase board. And over the weekend, I wrote down side by side my biggest challenges as a man and as a human, the ways I want to express myself, what interests, like the deep aspects that my soul feels called to, where my insecurities are, blah, blah, blah. And then I put right next to it the same for my partner, Katie, and looked at them. Went, do you see how each one of these things dances together? Do you see the potential that if I explore darkness and you explore light, and then I share darkness with you in a clean way, and you share light with me in a clean way? Do you see how I'm the primal, you're the divine? But if you actually step into the primal and I step into the divine, we support each other. Right? Like, I mapped the fucking thing out. In my marriage, it was like, I don't know. What do you want to do today? By the way, I'm going to go in the other room and get high. Cool? Okay, good. So radically different experiences.
For those resonating with what you've just said, I reckon your book and Robert Glover's No More Mr. Nice Guy are two really good places for people to start. And the amount of nice guys that have read Glover's book and been like, holy fuck, this dude is speaking straight to me.
Directly to me, right?
It's eye-opening. It is eye-opening.
He is the man when it comes to nice guy stuff.
It's a really good book.
Him.
Mate, there's so much that we could talk about, and I really would love to get you back on,
please,
again, because I didn't get to any of the questions that I had for you, but that is a good sign of the conversation that we've had. But for those that want to check out your work and what you do, where's the best spot for them to find you?
I'm on Instagram at Traver Boehm, TraverBoehm, or go to manuncivilized.com. That has it has all of the programs, all the workshops, all the things that I'm doing this year. I have a big program coming out in the next couple of months called Behind the Masks of Men. And it's a 3-month series with 2 brilliant therapists. And we're looking at, in like a deep dive, it's online, so you can do it anywhere in the world, anger and rage, relationship and attachment, and sex and desire. And the first and last one are men only. The middle one's co-ed. But man, this is where I feel like the book was 101. This is, okay, let's take some really deep topics, and with some geniuses, people like I've hired way above my own brilliance or lack thereof. Like, one of the guys is 70 years old. He's been a therapist for over 50 years, or for almost 50 years, like 80,000 hours with clients. He's going to talk about men and anger. He's going to talk about relationship and attachment. So please check that out. It's on manuncivilized.com/behind the masks. Those are the 2 main places. I have a podcast called the Uncivilized Podcast. Check out the books, Today I Rise, Man Uncivilized. Both are on Amazon, Audible. I'm not hard to find, but yeah, please get a hold of the book too. If you can read the book, it'll lay out the foundation for everything that I've built on top of that.
And as someone who's read the book and is an avid reader of lots of books, I really rate it highly. So jump out, get it, check the great man on socials, and consider his program later in the year. Thanks again, brother.
Appreciate you, brother. Thank you. Take care.